Broadcasting live from Jackson and State in Chicago's Loop, it's Radio DePaul Sports and Entertainment.
You're listening to RDSE, where sports and showbiz meet.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Beyond the Scoreboard, presented by RDSE, and I'm your host, Michael Lyons, and it's been a huge week in the NBA this week, probably the biggest week in recent memory, with so many trades. Trade deadline was yesterday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we saw so many people get moved. Along with all these trade deadlines, we saw 2 game winners this week. It was just an amazing week for the NBA, but this show is going to be based a lot on the NBA trade deadline, what has gone on. So the first trade of the deadline was on February 1st, where we saw the Clippers get Drew Eubanks, Patty Mills for Mo Bamba, PJ Tucker, and a second-round pick. Nothing crazy, something simple to start it off. There's always these little trades that go on during the trade deadline. So it was very tame to start, but then we just saw the biggest trade in NBA history probably on February 2nd with the Dallas Mavericks trading Luka Doncic, Maxi Kleber, and Markieff Morris to the Lakers for Anthony Davis and Max Christie, along with a first-round pick, and the Utah Jazz also being included in this deal, getting 2 second-round picks, one from the Clippers, and then a Clippers pick and a Dallas pick, and Jalen Hood-Schifino. What were the Lakers thinking? What were the Mavericks thinking in trading Luka Doncic, their 25-year-old perennial MVP? And this just proves that a lot of people aren't fit to be a GM, and Nico Harrison is not fit to be a GM, especially for a team like the Dallas Mavericks. All of his excuses for making this Luka Doncic trade were just unexcusable. Like, none of the things he's been saying are making sense. One of the main points he said was that Luka Doncic is out of shape, and we always have to deal with him being out of shape going into a season. He got off the plane in LA, and he did not look 270, how Nico Harrison was calling him. And Markieff Morris, a player along in the trade with Luka Doncic, said, if you give 30 and 15 in the NBA, you don't know what shape is. So, again, that's just a dumb thing that he said, and he's going to have to live with being the guy that traded Luka Doncic. Also, the defense, I get Luka Doncic is not a defensive guy, but last year, post-trade deadline, they were 5th in the NBA in defense. That team was good on the defensive end. That's what led them to the NBA Finals last year. It hasn't looked the same this year. One, because the offense is not the same with Luka Doncic being out and not playing. So, just everything Nico Harrison is saying is just excuse after excuse after excuse that makes absolutely no sense. And everybody in Dallas that is a Mavericks fan deserves to be upset about this trade. Now, the Mavericks, they get Anthony Davis in return, and Anthony Davis is still an all-NBA guy. He fills that defensive hole that they believe that they needed, but still, I just don't know if it puts them over the top of a team like the OKC Thunder in the Western Conference, or even the Nuggets, really. The Nuggets are still a great, well-rounded team, and we've seen what Nikola Jokic has done to Anthony Davis in the past in the playoffs. So this trade just, every time you look at it, it doesn't make any sense for the Dallas Mavericks. For the Lakers, great trade. You get off Anthony Davis, and you only have to give up 1 first-round pick for a 25-year-old superstar, face of your franchise once LeBron retires. Now, they are going to have to re-sign him, but at this point, he's going to re-sign with the Lakers probably just to rub it in to Nico Harrison, and he took the high road. He said he didn't want to say anything that happened between him and Nico Harrison. So Luka is being a professional about it. Obviously, he was very upset. You could tell. He said he cried all night after being traded. Like, this shows how much Dallas meant to Luka and how much Luka knows he meant to Dallas, in the fact that he was in tears for hours and hours about getting traded from his team, because Luka Doncic was a guy that everybody assumed was going to be a Dallas Maverick for life. And now that he's not, it feels like it still doesn't even feel real because he hasn't even played yet. Neither him or Anthony Davis have played for the Mavericks or the Lakers, so it doesn't even feel real still. Once we see Luka on the court with LeBron, it's going to be like, wow, you put two guys next to each other that are probably some of the smartest basketball IQ, and Luka Doncic is just going to learn from LeBron James, and it's going to be amazing for Luka and what he's going to be able to accomplish. It's great for the Lakers to get another superstar. Lakers fans have never really had to go through a stretch of bad teams and not having a direction other than that, like 2015, 2016 Lakers with Lonzo and all those guys. But Lakers fans have never had to go through the struggle like some other fans in the NBA. We'll get to the Kings in a little bit. Jazz, in this trade, they get Jalen Hood-Schifino, who he hasn't been able to show much in his rookie season this year, only averaging 2 points a game, and he's only appeared in 21 games for the Lakers. This is his second season, actually. 21 games last year and only 2 this season, so he hasn't been able to play much, and hopefully he gets a chance. Jalen Hood-Schifino out of Indiana, he showed a lot of good signs in college, and he went 17th overall to the Lakers, so he obviously has that punch and that skill of being in the NBA. He just hasn't got the chance with that Lakers team being kind of star-studded and not as many minutes for the young guys. So this trade, I'm going to grade some of these trades. Jazz, I'm going to give them a B for this trade, just getting Jalen Hood-Schifino. Seems like it could be solid and you get 2 first-round picks. C+, B area. Lakers, A+, obviously. You get the best player in the deal, younger player, so A+ for them for only having to give up a first-round pick for him. Then the Dallas Mavericks, if it wasn't for Luka Doncic, I would give it a B. Imagine Kyrie for AD straight up. Or this trade, Kyrie, Maxi Kleber, Markieff Morris to the Lakers, and then the Mavericks get back Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a first-round pick, or even not a first-round pick. That trade would have made 100% sense, and I feel like everybody would have still been okay with it. LeBron gets his guy, gets Kyrie back playing with him to end his career. AD is a lob threat for Luka. Another thing with the Mavericks is that front court is loaded now. AD, Daniel Gafford, and Derek Lively. There's not going to be enough minutes for those guys going around, so they're going to have to consolidate one of them in the offseason probably to get a wing. Even though Anthony Davis has said he wants to play 4, I just don't like the spacing with Kyrie, Clay, Caleb Martin, who they also traded for, and maybe AD, and then Daniel Gafford. I just don't like that fit. But we're going to move on from the Luka Doncic trade. The next big trade, within 24 hours, we saw my Sacramento Kings trade De'Aaron Fox, the longtime King, to the San Antonio Spurs and Jordan McLaughlin. And then they also sent Kevin Huerter to the Bulls, who were part of this trade. And the Bulls also got Zach Collins and Trey Jones and a first-round pick, their own first-round pick in return. And then the Kings, they get Zach LaVine, Sidi Sissoko, a first-round pick that's top 14 protected from the Charlotte Hornets, 2 first-round picks from the Spurs and Minnesota, and then 3 second-round picks. The biggest deal in this trade is De'Aaron Fox getting to pair next to Victor Wembanyama, who is going to be the best player De'Aaron's ever played with. De'Aaron is going to be the best player Victor Wembanyama's ever played with, so they looked good their first game they played when they beat the Hawks. I love De'Aaron. I'm always going to be on De'Aaron's side. I don't like how he went about it in saying that in his interview, he was talking to Stephon Castle of the San Antonio Spurs, saying he doesn't want him to get traded for him. Like, he doesn't want Stephon Castle to be traded for himself. So I don't like that. It's a little bit of tampering right there. You're not really allowed to do that in the NBA, but we'll let it go. De'Aaron's my boy. Hopefully in the next coming years he can win a ring with them. We get Zach LaVine, who is an aging superstar, 10, 12 plus 30-point games this season. He did cook the Kings last time the Bulls and the Kings faced off at the United Center with 36 points. The first-round pick from Charlotte is going to turn into a second-round pick in 2 seasons since it's top 14 protected. We get 2 first-round picks and then 3 second-round picks. So I like the haul we got in return. We get off the Kevin Huerter contract, but Zach LaVine's contract is huge. It's going to be hard to handle, especially with him getting a little bit older since he's 29, almost 30. For the Bulls, Zach Collins, he's just going to be a bench guy that might get some minutes, not on a great contract. Trey Jones, who is a younger guard, but he's on the last year of his deal, so they'll have to figure out what they're going to do with that in the offseason. And then Kevin Huerter, again, another bad contract. Just getting off Zach LaVine, picking a direction to go. They're definitely going to be rebuilding, especially getting their own first-round pick in return. To grade this deal, I'm going to give the Spurs an A because of getting De'Aaron Fox and only having to give up one of your own first-round picks. The Kings, I'm going to give them a C+ because you get 2 first-round picks and 4 second-round picks. You get Zach LaVine, who can give you something, some sort of that De'Aaron Fox hole that got left. And then the Bulls, I'm going to give them a solid B. Getting their own first-round pick back is very positive for them. The only thing with the Kings is with Zach LaVine coming in, we don't have a true point guard now. Malik Monk in the 2 games that have been played since the Zach LaVine, De'Aaron Fox trade, he's been solid at creating for other guys, but he's just not going to be able to sustain that. I would much rather see Keon Ellis get in that starting role. Malik Monk in last night's game had 4 assists in our 108-102 loss. Sabonis is still a solid playmaker. DeMar can playmake at times. Zach LaVine is not much of a playmaker. Sabonis in the pick and roll with both Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan is solid, and Malik Monk too. It's just we don't have any defense on the court when it's Malik Monk, Zach LaVine, Domantas Sabonis, Keegan Murray, who can be a solid defender at times, but he's streaky on the offensive end, and then DeMar DeRozan. It's just not a great lineup. We need to figure out, and then we also have some other deals we made, so it makes it a little bit harder. So let's just move into more deals, and then we'll come back to the Kings in a little bit. That was on February 2nd, the De'Aaron Fox trade. On the 3rd of February, just a random trade, the Charlotte Hornets trade their 2029 or 2030 pick to the Thunder, and then the Hornets get a 2029 second-round pick in return. A little weird of a trade. It's one of those trades. It's like nobody's really gonna look back on it unless one of these guys turns into something. Which with the Thunder, you never know. Then February 4th kicked off. Dallas Mavericks are getting Caleb Martin in return for Quentin Grimes and a 2025 pick they are sending to Philly. Again, they're sending another second-round pick because of Caleb Martin's injury. The severity of his injury is a lot more than they thought it was going to be. It just seems like they're kind of getting the same player in return. Caleb Martin is solid in the playoffs. That's one thing that they can look forward to. He has shown that he can perform in the playoffs. And Quentin Grimes, younger guy, contract is at the end. This year is the end of his contract, so they're either going to try to re-sign him in the offseason or just let him walk and get off that salary cap. So I like to trade for both teams because the Sixers are just sitting at the bottom of the East right now and they're not really fighting for anything. And then Caleb Martin obviously gets in plays. He's going to be playing for a playoff team where he's shown he can provide something in the playoffs for a lot of teams. And then that was the final trade for that day as well. So the third and the fourth, nothing really happened. The fifth happens, and the first trade of February 5th was we saw the Detroit Pistons get KJ Martin and 2 second-round picks for cash considerations to the Philadelphia 76ers. Sixers just clearing house, getting off some bad contracts. Detroit Pistons get a young guy and 2 second-round picks. Like to trade for the Pistons. For the Sixers, it's just a whatever trade. I'm going to give a B and a C. B for the Pistons, C for the Sixers. Then, again, another smaller trade. We saw the Boston Celtics get a second-round pick, and they send to the Houston Rockets a Jaden Springer and a 2030 second-round pick. Jaden Springer has been solid in some minutes he's got. He's averaging 1.7 this season, but in his last 5 games, he had a 4-point game and a 3-point game, but he's just not getting any minutes. In the 4-point game was in a 20-minute game for him against the Bulls where he had 5 rebounds on 50% from the 3-point line, 2 assists, a block, 2 steals, and 4 points. So he could be maybe a solid contributor for them if they have injuries, but he's not going to get many minutes, and he's probably just going to sit in the G League and then unless there's some injuries. Then after that, we saw the New Orleans Pelicans send Daniel Tice and a second-round pick to the OKC Thunder for cash considerations. Love the trade for the Thunder, getting some front court depth in Daniel Tice and getting a second-round pick in return and only giving up cash, just taking the contract of Daniel Tice. He's nothing crazy. He's averaging 7 points. Oh, actually, they cut him, I believe. So I think it was just cash considerations for a second-round pick, and then they cut him. Interesting. I did not see that before this, but he was averaging 7 points before. Somebody else will go pick him up. Like the move for the Thunder, getting a second-round pick, because you never know what they could turn those second-round picks into. Then, finally, another bigger trade. We saw the Wizards trade Valanciunas to the Sacramento Kings for Sidy Cissoko and 2 second-round picks. I like this trade for the Kings because we have always struggled with bench centers. Bench minutes from the center position have always been terrible for us. We've had some solid streaks of guys where Rashawn Holmes could come in and give us a couple good games. Alex Len could give us a couple good games. When we had Neemias Queta, he gave us some good minutes at times. But finally, we're getting a solidified guy that can give us some really solid minutes for a prolonged stretch of time. And we only give up Sidy Cissoko, who was not a part of our rotation. We just traded for him, and then we traded off of him. And we give up 2 second-round picks for a guy that is Jonas Valanciunas' level. He's averaging 11.4 points per game this season with the Wizards. In the 49 games he played with the Wizards, he was averaging 11.5 points with 8 rebounds, and most of those games were off the bench. So he's used to coming off the bench. In the one game he played for the Kings last night, he had 6 points, 5 rebounds. So already instantly came in and gave us a little bit more than Alex Len would. I like the trade for the Kings. Gives us some front court depth. I'm gonna give it a B for the Kings, and then the Wizards just getting picks and maybe a young guy that could develop, but I'm going to give it a B and a B for both teams. Then probably the next huge trade that happened, the Milwaukee Bucks get Kyle Kuzma, Patrick Baldwin Jr., Jericho Sims, and a second-round draft compensation in a 3-team trade, which also sees the Wizards get Chris Middleton and A.J. Johnson in a first-round pick swap, and the New York Knicks get DeLon Wright and cash considerations. This is a huge trade for the Milwaukee Bucks. Chris Middleton, since he's come back from his ankle and leg injuries, couple seasons ago, he has not been the same player. They get a guy who's been in trade rumors for years now. Basically, since he got to the Wizards, Kyle Kuzma has been in trade talks. He's averaging 15 points per game this season on 42% shooting. He's going to give you 6 rebounds and 2.5 assists. Just a guy to put next to Giannis that can knock down the shots and can be streaky at times. This season, he's averaging a little under 30% from the three-point line, so that's not great, but I think it's more of a volume thing for Kyle Kuzma as he gets so many shots with the Wizards because they're so young. Some of these guys aren't exactly sure when they should shoot the ball. He's kind of the vet on that team, so like they want to trade him or they want to give him the ball, make him work when it gets down to the wire. They get Patrick Baldwin Jr., who they also just flipped. Jericho Sims, who has shown promise at times for the New York Knicks. New York Knicks fans were just kind of okay with him playing at times, but he's nothing crazy. The Wizards, they get Chris Middleton, an all-star a couple seasons ago. Probably just going to let him walk when his contract is up or look to trade him in the offseason. But the biggest part of this trade, I think, is getting A.J. Johnson. This season, he's a rookie, 20-year-old rookie. He was the 23rd pick by the Milwaukee Bucks this past draft. And he's averaging 3 points per game this season, but he has looked solid in the minutes he's played, especially in the G League. He's played 7 games this season, averaging 3 points a game and a rebound, but he could be somebody that you could sneakily watch in a couple seasons turn into a really solid piece for the Wizards, and I like that trade by them. DeLon Wright goes to the Knicks, just some guard depth for them, a defensive-minded guy. For this trade, I'm going to give the Knicks a C+. Nothing crazy. They didn't give up much besides Jericho Sims, and they get DeLon Wright in return. Wizards, I'm going to give them a B for getting the first-round pick swap and A.J. Johnson. And then the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm going to give them a B as well, based off the fact of getting Kyle Kuzma, who could be streaky at times. Then, the last trade of the night for February 5th. Actually, no, we have 2 more trades for February. Wow, February 5th was loaded. I went to sleep after the Jimmy Butler trade, which we haven't even got to that. I missed the complete Brandon Ingram trade until the next morning. But we saw Brandon Ingram get traded to the Toronto Raptors for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, a first-round pick from Indiana, and a second-round pick. This trade kind of came out of the blue. I was not expecting the Raptors to be somebody in the Brandon Ingram sweepstakes. I was expecting, to be honest, the Kings were supposed to be in there, but then the Zach LaVine trade happened. There was some other teams. The Lakers are always connected to him, but contract-wise probably wouldn't have fit. I just wasn't expecting the Raptors, but I really like this trade for Toronto if they can get that contract extension with Brandon Ingram. And you only give up Bruce Brown, who has rarely even played for you. Kelly Olynyk, just a bench guy that had a bigger contract, and you only give up a first-round pick for Brandon Ingram, a proven scorer, averaging 22 points per game this season. And he's only 27. Contract is coming up, though. And if the Toronto Raptors can get him to re-sign when his contract is up, it's going to be huge for them. You're going to get a lineup of Emmanuel Quickley, Grady Dick, Scotty Barnes, R.J. Barrett, Brandon Ingram, Jakob Poeltl. You could consolidate one of those guys and Jakob Poeltl into getting a proven center. That's a strong starting 5, and it can compete for a playoff spot in the coming seasons and pretty much bypass the play-in. Darko Radmanovic is having this Toronto Raptors team. They're always in games late, and they're just not pulling them out because of that, having some of these young guys on the court for them. So you get a proven scorer like Brandon Ingram who could come in and give you some buckets down the stretch, and maybe some of these losses they've had this season are going to turn into wins, and you might see the Toronto Raptors jump up into like a play-in team, and that's not a play-in team you really want to play if you're some of the teams in the Eastern Conference. Because right now, the Raptors, they're 16-35, but they're only 6 games out from the Bulls, who are the 10th seed. They would also have to beat the Sixers into that, who have a 4-game lead on them right now. But if you get in there and you play a Hawks team, a Magic team, even a Sixers team, they're not going to want to play you. And, I mean, if the Bulls are also in there, this is not a team that these guys are going to want to play, especially with Brandon Ingram, who could always explode for 40 points at a given time, and Scotty Barnes, who is continuing to develop, and RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley. They got some guys up there in Toronto. I'm going to give it an A for the Raptors if they can re-sign him. If they can't, it's kind of just a whatever trade. They gave up a first-round pick for a chance at re-signing to Brandon Ingram. So Pelicans, they get a first-round pick. Would have liked to get more from Brandon Ingram if I was a Pelicans fan, so I would give him probably a C-, D+ area. Then a huge question mark for the Lakers from the Luka Doncic trade is, what do you do at the center position? You're going to run out there with Jackson Hayes? LeBron going to play some 4? You run Dorian Finney-Smith maybe at the 5? They settled that in a way I was not expecting, because so the Lakers get Mark Williams. In return, they send Dalton Knecht and Cam Reddish and a first-round pick swap in 2030 and unprotected first-round pick in 2031. So I think they gave up a lot to get Mark Williams, to be honest. Mark Williams at times this season has struggled with effort. He's averaging 16 points per game this season, so it's not a skill thing. It's more of just at times he struggles with staying motivated in the game, and that could just be a sign of the Hornets were bad, and now he's going to be on a team that's going to be fighting in the playoffs, and we're going to get to see Mark Williams finally get into playoffs. So maybe his whole mindset is going to change. Biggest thing was getting rid of Dalton Knecht, which Dalton Knecht was somebody, if you told me the Lakers were going to trade for Luka Doncic, I would have imagined Dalton Knecht would have been a part of that trade. But I don't know, giving up Dalton Knecht for Mark Williams, I don't know. I think they could have gone out and they could have got Jonas Valanciunas, who got traded, or Yusuf Nurkic, who got traded, or somebody else, and not have to give up Dalton Knecht and 2 first-round picks. Your own first-round pick in 2031, which at this point, anything could happen at that time. LeBron's probably going to be gone. Well, he's going to be gone. And if you re-sign Luka, yeah, it's probably not going to be a great pick, but still, it could be a solid pick for the Hornets in a couple seasons. For this trade, I'm going to give the Hornets a B+ area for getting Dalton Knecht and an unprotected first-round pick from the Lakers. For the Lakers, I'm going to give them a C+, just because Mark Williams has struggled with effort this season. Then the Jimmy Butler trade happened. 5-team trade, which it wasn't exactly a 5-team trade at the start, but there was some other things that went on after the trade. So all in all, after the Jimmy Butler trade, the Golden State Warriors get Jimmy Butler. The Miami Heat get Kyle Anderson, Davion Mitchell, Andrew Wiggins, and a 2025 first-round pick. The Pistons get Dennis Schroeder and Lendy Waters III. The Utah Jazz get KJ Martin and Josh Richardson. And then the Raptors get PJ Tucker, a second-round pick from the Lakers, and cash considerations. This is a huge trade. Obviously, Jimmy Butler did not want to go to the Golden State Warriors. That was not his preferred destination. But the Miami Heat did not cave in and give in to Jimmy Butler and just send him wherever he wanted. Also, it's due in fact to Bradley Beal having a chokehold on Jimmy Butler during this trade deadline. Bradley Beal really held back the Phoenix Suns for making this Jimmy Butler trade, and it kind of sucks to see that we didn't get to see Jimmy Butler, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant next to each other, but now we get to see Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, and Draymond. Biggest question mark with this, also Jimmy Butler got a 2-year contract extension for $121 million, which he said prior to getting traded to the Warriors that he would not sign an extension with the Warriors, but he did anyways because money talks, and Jimmy Butler, at this point in his career, really only cares about money. So Jimmy Butler goes to the Golden State Warriors. I like it for Jimmy and Miami. He gets out of Miami. He's not a diva for them anymore. He can finally let the Heat just play basketball, let them just worry about their own things. The Warriors, on the other hand, it's going to be a big question mark if they can continue to motivate Jimmy Butler during the regular season. Because if this Golden State Warriors team gets into the playoffs, this is not a team any team wants to see. Jimmy Butler is a proven playoff performer. He's taken a Miami Heat team that wasn't even projected to make the playoffs to the NBA Finals. So we cannot discredit Jimmy Butler for his playoff performances. Another big thing with Jimmy Butler being in Golden State is that fit with Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green, some guys that Jimmy Butler likes to talk. Draymond is a vocal leader for this team. They're going to butt heads a lot this season. And if Draymond can motivate Jimmy Butler in the way that Jimmy Butler can continue to play during the regular season like he plays in the postseason, or even a percentage of that, this Golden State Warriors team is going to be a team to watch out for. Because on the other side of Jimmy Butler, you also have Stephen Curry, who is a proven playoff performer, multiple NBA champion. I like the move for the Warriors if Jimmy Butler can just stay happy. For the Heat, you get Kyle Anderson, Davion Mitchell, and Andrew Wiggins. I love this trade for the Miami Heat. You won this trade 100%. Kyle Anderson, solid bench guy who can come in and give you solid 7-8 points every night. Davion Mitchell, young guard, defensive-minded guard. He's going to fit in with that Miami Heat culture, coming off the bench. Even plug him in the starting lineup if you really want to. Andrew Wiggins, he's going to fit perfectly with Eric Spoelstra. Spoelstra's going to have him playing at an elite level, I believe. And you get a first-round pick. This is an amazing trade for the Miami Heat. They really solidified this team. I really like this team if they can keep them going into next season as well. So I think we'll go over the other guys, but I really think the Miami Heat really might have won the trade deadline other than the Lakers. The Pistons, they get Dennis Schroeder and Lindy Waters III. Just two solid bench guys that can come in when you have injuries. Dennis Schroeder is a proven proven solid point guard for the NBA this season. When he was in Brooklyn, he was cooking. So if he can get back to that off the bench, would love to see that if you're a Pistons fan. The Jazz, they get KJ Martin, young guy, still hasn't really proven much in the NBA in his career. Josh Richardson, just a solid vet, can give some of these guys some veteran mentorship. The Raptors, they get PJ Tucker and a second-round pick. They kind of just were a part of the trade. Nothing crazy with them. To grade this trade, Raptors, I'm going to give it a D. They didn't really do much, but you give up Davion Mitchell. So Davion Mitchell for PJ Tucker is not a great trade for them. Jazz, C, because you get a young guy. Pistons, a C as well, just because you're getting bench depth. Heat, I'm going to give them an A+. I'm going to give the Miami Heat an A+. Warriors, I'm going to give them a B+ to an A. Another trade we saw, February 6th happened, so finally we're off of February 5th into February 6th. First trade of the February 6th, so the last day of the trade deadline, we saw the Wizards get Reggie Jackson and a first-round pick for Jared Butler and 4 second-round picks. So, just a solid, you trade a younger point guard for an older point guard. If you're a Sixers fan, I mean, Jared Butler has been solid in some minutes I've watched him this season, but you give up a first-round pick for him. It's the least favorable in 2026 of OKC, Houston, and the Clippers, so out of those picks, are not going to be anything crazy. It's just a whatever trade. Nobody's really going to look back at this unless this first-round pick turns into something crazy. But I'm just going to give each team a C for it because it was nothing really crazy. Then, obviously, there was the Davion Mitchell, PJ Tucker trade, which happened after the original Jimmy Butler trade. So I'm not going to talk much on that. Kind of an interesting trade. We see the Charlotte Hornets trade Cody Martin and Micic and a second-round pick to the Suns and get Yusuf Nurkic and a first-round pick in return. Obviously, the biggest thing the Hornets get from this is that first-round pick, but Yusuf Nurkic, I don't really know how he's going to fit in with the Hornets. Maybe buyout. Maybe he could be part of a buyout there, but I don't know. I don't think the Hornets are just looking for some starting center play for them because they traded away both Nick Richards and Mark Williams. But you get the first-round pick in return, so I'm going to give the Hornets a B. Suns, I'm going to give them a solid C+ because you get off Yusuf Nurkic's contract, who has been kind of a hold on the Suns and what they can accomplish this season. Another big trade, Cleveland Cavaliers get DeAndre Hunter in return for Karis LeVert, George Niang, 3 second-round picks, and 2 future pick swaps. I love this trade for the Cleveland Cavaliers. They really just shored up their starting lineup. Now you're going to have 5 guys out there that are great defender, or 3. The front court in Cleveland is going to be an amazing defensive unit. DeAndre Hunter, Evan Mobley, and now Jared Allen as well. And then you also have DeAndre Hunter, who is proven that he has developed some of a scoring game. 19 points he's averaging this season. 19 points in the 37 games he's played this year on 40% for the three-point line, 46% for the field goal. So he's really taken a step this season compared to last. And he's just a really good, solid defender who's going to fit in with Cleveland. Great trade for Cleveland, only happening to give up. The only thing with the Cleveland trade is I don't like that they gave up Karis LeVert because I think he's a really solid bench piece for them. George Niang really hasn't done much for them. So I'm going to give it a B+ for the Cavs and a C for the Hawks just because Karis LeVert could be a solid bench piece for them. They get some picks. I'll bump it up to a C+. Then February 6th, again, we saw just a whatever trade. The Rockets get Cody Zeller and a second-round pick in exchange for some cash considerations. Cody Zeller not doing much for the Hawks this season. Gets traded just to be a bench guy in case any of their front court goes down, but just a whatever trade. Getting to the end of these trades, got 4 left. The Hawks are part of another trade. They trade Bogdan Bogdanović and 3 second-round picks to the Clippers for Terrence Mann and Bones Highland. Now, this is an interesting trade because Bogdan Bogdanović was a trade piece that a lot of teams were looking for. He's averaging 10 points per game off the season this year, off the bench this season for the Hawks, on some not great efficiency, but he's only played 24 games. You get him in a different situation. He can maybe thrive a little bit more off the bench for the Los Angeles Clippers. And the Hawks, they get in return Terrence Mann, who is just a solid defender, can hit some shots down the stretch when you need him, but kind of fills that Bogdan Bogdanović role that they just lost. And then they get Bones Highland, who, when he plays, he is a true scorer, and he's proven that he's a true scorer, but it's just more about him actually getting on the court to play. So if he can get some minutes in Atlanta, it could be fun to watch him. Then the final big trade of the trade deadline was a 3-team trade we see the Memphis Grizzlies get Marvin Bagley III, ex-Kings guy, Johnny Davis, and 2 second-round picks. And then the Wizards, they get Colby Jones from the Kings, Marcus Smart and Alex Len from the Kings, and then a first-round pick. And then the Kings get Jake LaRavia. This is a huge pickup for the Sacramento Kings. Jake LaRavia he's having an amazing season in Memphis, a 112 defensive rating, which is now going to be the highest, or 110 defensive rating, second highest. That's going to be on the Kings now behind Keon Ellis. So finally we're actually attempting to shore up the defensive side of the ball in getting Jake LaRavia, 6'7" forward. In his third season in the NBA, he's played 47 games this season, averaging 7 points a game, 4.5 rebounds, and then 45% from the three-point line, and then 50% from the field. So he's a reliable scorer when he actually needs to hit the shots, and great on the defensive end. So this is exactly what we needed. Again, with the Kings is how do we run out these lineups? It's so tough. It's going to be really tough on Doug Christie because he just needs to lock into one lineup. It's getting a little bit too late in the season for us to be scrambling around with so many different lineups. And if I'm Doug Christie, this is the lineup I'm running out there, night in and night out, if everybody's healthy. Keon Ellis at the 1, Zach LaVine at the 2, DeMar at the 3, Keegan at the 4, Domantas Sabonis at the 5. Off the bench, Malik Monk, Jake LaRavia, Jonas Valanciunas, Trey Lyles. This is a solid starting lineup because we get a little bit of defense mixed in there with Keon Ellis and Keegan Murray, who are both solid defenders at times. And then you have the scoring of Zach LaVine, DeMar, and Sabonis, who is just an all-around guy for us. So that's how I would run it out if I'm Doug Christie, but I don't know. I just think he feels like he has to play Malik Monk because Malik Monk's on kind of a bigger contract, and he's more of a proven guy than Keon Ellis. But Keon Ellis this season is the key to a lot of our victories, and he needs to continue to be in the starting lineup for us, night in and night out, for us to be the best form of our team. Now for the Kings, I love the trade for us. We only give up Colby Jones and Alex Len, so I'm going to give us an A for that because we've sure up a true position we need in forward depth and defensive depth. The Wizards, they get Colby Jones, Marcus Smart, Alex Len, and a first-round pick. First-round pick is the biggest part of this. Marcus Smart is just going to be kind of a vet for Bub Carrington, Bilal Coulibaly. So I like that for them. For the Grizzlies, Marvin Bagley III and Johnny Davis could be solid bench pieces for them. Johnny Davis is still not proven himself in the NBA yet, and his third season, averaging 2.5 points per game. So hopefully a change of scenery can help him develop into the guy that we all thought he was going to be originally when he came out of Wisconsin. They get 2 second-round picks. Some win-now moves for the Grizzlies, shoring up the bench. So I like that for them. 2 more trades. We saw the Los Angeles Clippers get MarJon Beauchamp and the Milwaukee Bucks getting Kevin Porter Jr. Bucks shoring up a guard depth in Kevin Porter Jr., who is also a proven scorer off the bench. And they give up MarJon Beauchamp, who in times that he's played with the Bucks in his 3 seasons, he has shown that he can be a solid offensive piece for them, but it was nothing that was going to put them over the top. Kevin Porter Jr. is someone who can put them over the top if we really look at it. This season with the Clippers, Kevin Porter Jr. is averaging 9.3 points per game. Very, very solid. 42% from the field. Struggling to shoot the three-point ball still in his NBA career. 45 games. He's only started 2, though. So Minutes-wise, he's only averaging 20 minutes a game. So I feel like that's the role he's going to fit in with the Milwaukee Bucks, 20-minute guy coming off the bench, giving them some scoring next to Bobby Portis Jr. So I like to trade for the Bucks, get Kevin Porter Jr. I'm going to give it A, because you only give up Marjon Beauchamp, and he really, this season, hasn't got much playing time, so you just give up a younger guy, get a guy that is more proven in championship hopes. Clippers, I'm going to give him a C just because they get Marjon Beauchamp. If he turns it into something, great. Not expecting anything crazy from him. And then the last trade, we saw James Wiseman get traded to the Toronto Raptors in cash considerations for a future draft pick, top 55 protected. So James Wiseman, again, he's out for the season with a torn Achilles, and he's also just been waived by the Toronto Raptors. So it's tough for a guy like James Wiseman right now. I hope this isn't the end of his NBA career, because I really think he could prove to himself in the coming seasons if he can just stay healthy. He's only 23. Can't give up on him too early. But I think it's really going to be tough for him to come back in the NBA. And again, you get traded and you get waived. It doesn't look good. But hopefully he can come back. Nothing crazy in this trade. I'm not even going to rate it. It's cash considerations for a top 55 protected pick. It's not even worth grading. This is all I have for you today, guys. I hope you enjoyed listening to Beyond the Scoreboard presented by RDSE, and I'm your host, Michael Lyons.